Welcome back to the Foundation in C# course. We're currently in Module 9. In this lesson, we're planning out the W step of our planning process. So we're going to walk through our application. So the very first thing I want you to do is do your homework. And I want you to do this. Walk through the application requirements, pull out the important bits, okay? Fully understand what needs to be accomplished. So in lesson 2, or the second lesson in this course, we talked about what the application design is. We talked about what this hotel management app is all about. So pull the important bits out and really understand what we need to do in this application. Once you're done that, then come on back. So pause the video. Once you're done, come on back and you'll see me do it. But pause the video right here. Okay, I'm going to assume that you pause the video, you've done the work, and you've come on back. Let's go over to, I have OneNote open here. This is a great little tool for documenting digitally. Now, I've encouraged you, don't do this digitally. But for recording purposes, it's much, much easier for me to record digitally. I'm actually in the process of setting up my studio so that I can record in a non-digital manner, meaning I can record myself at a whiteboard. And we'll do that for future start to finish courses. But in this case, we're going to do it in OneNote like it was a notepad. All right. So just think of this as your legal pad on your desk or your whiteboard. So this is the requirements we have from the second video in this course. So we've been commissioned to create a hotel management application. So that's the first piece of information we need to know, that this is for, and let's change the font size here to be something more significant. This is a hotel management app. So we're going to probably call it hotel management or something like that. All right. But it's also all about a hotel. Now in the US, it may be different overseas in different areas. But in the US, there is a differentiation between a hotel and a motel. And most of the differentiation has to do with whether they have indoor entrances to the rooms or if you have to go outside to go to the room. Indoor entrances is the hotel style. But it also means this is not a bed and breakfast application. This is not an application for other places where you might stay, Airbnb. This is not what that is. Okay, it's about hotels. So, first piece of information that's important. Next, we need a web portal. That's an important piece of information we need to pull out of this. And what does that web portal do? Well, and let's break these out into bullet points here. So the web portal is going to allow guests to book rooms. Okay? So it's going to allow a guest to book a room. By book a room, I mean they're going to say, I want this type of room for this period of time. And that's something that we don't mention here, but is assumed. And the assumption is that guests don't just say, I want that room. They say, I want that room for these dates. And we'll cover more about assumptions in the next training step or the next planning step. But that's on a note, is that it doesn't specifically say that guests are going to leave again. It doesn't say that they're ever going to leave. Now, we obviously know that hotels are all about people coming and going. So therefore, that would be the assumption. But just note that there is not specifically anything that says they're going to leave. Okay, so you have to book a available room, which means that we have to know if rooms are available. Okay, we can't allow them to book a room if it's not available. The other thing that is an assumption here is that they're not going to book specific rooms. Okay, they're going to book a room type. So again, I'm talking from US experience. But in the US, if I go to, let's say, a Marriott, I go to Marriott.com and I say, I want a room in this city at this location, which we haven't talked about locations here either. So we're assuming it's one hotel, but we'll get to that in assumptions later. So if I say I want to book a room from this date to this date, the hotel website will tell me, okay, here are the available room types. We have a room with a king-size bed, or we have a room with 2 queen-size beds, and maybe also have a suite available, right? That's what will tell me. But if they have no more suites available, it won't even show me that option. It will only book a room that's a suite if they're already all booked for that date range, or any part of that date range, actually. So that's something we have to think through, is how do we know availability of rooms? But also, we're assuming that we're going to do that same style of this type of room or that type of room, versus I have room 101, 102, 103, 104, 105. That doesn't seem logical because of the fact that typically we don't allow guests to say, I want this specific room number. But that's something to think through or know about. Okay? So that's an assumption. We're going to have to talk more about that in our next lesson. Okay. So they can book rooms if they're available. Now, we have a desktop app. Now, again, I said as a developer, I created requirements. So I said things like web app and desktop app. Probably in the real world, you'll be faced with someone that says, I want this. I want an application that, I want a calculator. And you have to figure out, yes, but is it a web-based calculator? Is it a desktop-based calculator? Is it a mobile app? Is it a mobile app for your iWatch? I mean, what do you want this to be? What platform do you want? That's one of the questions to ask. But in our case, we said desktop app. Now, I didn't say what type of desktop application. Is it WinForms? Is it WPF? Is it a console app? These are all things that were not specified because a user typically doesn't think about the specific types. Say a web portal. That web portal, we could be using a PHP web portal. Now, this is a C# course, so we're not going to do that. But the user probably doesn't know or even care what type of portal. We have to make sure we find that out and make sure that they don't have a preference. Because maybe they do. Maybe they have a whole architecture, a whole system or a suite of apps that are based upon Ruby on Rails. Well, it'd be kind of silly to create a ASP.NET web application for that company because they do Ruby for everything else. Therefore, we'd want to do our web portal in Ruby if possible. So the user doesn't typically know, but we do need to take those questions and figure out the answers and not just assume. So a desktop application. And this is all it says for when they check in. So what does that mean? Well, it does mean that the guest will check in via the desktop app. That's what we know. We have some assumptions here. And one of the assumptions is that the person working the front desk is the one that's going to actually use this WPF application. That they're going to say, okay, what's your name? And they're going to look up the information and say, okay, I'm going to mark you as checked in. But either way, whether it's self-service or whether it's a person at the front desk, we do know one more piece of information. We need to be able to look up guest reservations by name or other indicator or other piece of information. We don't know what information yet. That's an assumption of what we're going to look it up by. We'll have to figure out an actual implementation, probably the next step in our open up the requirement step, where we talk through, maybe we need to know what the lookup is based upon. But if the user comes in, we probably, and this is an assumption, but we probably don't want them scrolling through a list of all the users, or all the guests, whether it's the person at the front desk or a self-service kiosk. Either way, we probably don't want them scrolling through and saying, okay, Smith, no, Jones, no, Corey. Yep, Corey. Oh, wrong Corey. Oh, there's Tim Corey. That's me. We don't want that. We probably want them to say, okay, my name is Tim Corey, and the person behind the front desk types in Tim Corey and says, okay, I found a reservation for you, starting at this date and ending this date. Because I may have reservations for more than one set of dates. Maybe I come to this hotel every month, once a week, or for 1 week. We wouldn't want to have the reservation for next month come up. Environments and really dive into what assumptions there are, what things are missing, and where we need to go from here. Okay? So that's the next video.